Welcome to the Goldwater. We're live. This is a special audio only show because the CIA and Fusion GPS and Natalia Veselnitskaya have been colluding against us.
Yes,
because it's the Russian summit's going on and they're obviously they're afraid of what we have to say.
they're like rigging our show.
Yeah, they're totally afraid of what we have to say.
Yeah, so we're like troubleshooting for like almost an hour. Right?
Yep.
And we still didn't figure things out with the camera, so we can't go live stream now. Sorry, you cannot see my beautiful face today. Just only
I can vouch it's beautiful today. Yeah.
It's just only hear my voice. So how's everyone? I believe we will have Major Burdock on the line a little bit in a bit. So it's been a crazy week, actually.
Yep.
I didn't know that the Trump-Putin summit happened last night while we're sleeping.
Right, yeah.
And it was held in Finland.
And of course it would happen on the eve of, like, right hours before it's going to happen. Of course they're going to be like, they're going to discover 12 Russians who, by the way, from what I was reading, it was 12 guys involved in a troll farm. What did they do to hack our election?
Yeah.
They found out that Hillary Clinton and Podesta were up to no good. It reminds me of a joke I heard once, right? Okay, so Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are in a donut shop. And there's a plate with donuts, and it says donuts, $1 a piece.
Yeah.
And so Donald Trump bets Hillary, because they used to be best friends and all. Bets Hillary, hey, listen, I bet you.
Best friends?
Oh yeah. Went to each other's weddings. Donald Trump helped get Bill Clinton elected in '92. So there's this big old plate full of donuts, and Donald says, "Hey, Hillary, I bet you you can't make more of these donuts disappear than I can. We'll see who can make the most donuts disappear." And then, so he pops one in his mouth.
Yeah.
He pops one in his mouth. He pops one in his mouth. Meanwhile, she grabs 9 of them and shoves them in her purse real quick.
Oh.
And then, the owner of because it's a little mom and pop shop too. So the owner of the place runs up. Oh, hey, I see you guys enjoyed the donuts. So how many did you each have? And Donald Trump hands him $3. Well, here's $3 for the 3 that I ate. Well, what about the other 9? There were a dozen here. Oh, check that lady's purse.
Ooh.
So yeah, I mean, like Hillary was more involved in this whole, like, they're talking about like collusion. Dude, how is it these Russians' fault for noticing that she's, stealing and cheating and lying and, stole the primary from Bernie Sanders and, like, is it really Trump's fault for pointing out that, hey, that lady's shoving stuff in her purse? That's not his fault. He didn't do that. Like, if you get caught red-handed and someone takes a picture of you, then is it really the cameraman's fault?
No.
Or is it you for what you did? So yeah, they're talking about, well, there's these 12 Russians and they're involved in hacking the election by noticing that that Hillary's doing dirt. Wow.
That dirt.
Really? So it's their fault that, like, they made Hillary do that. They twisted her arm and held a gun to her head and said, "You're going to have to steal the primary from Bernie, and we need you to sell us $400 million worth of uranium ore and be involved in pay-for-play scandals with Qatar and other countries." Oh, yeah.
Yes. I've seen a video on our Spawn channel. About do we have an audio right now? So yeah, I think Hello? I cannot hear
Oh,
Hello,
anything.
Burdock here.
hey,
Hey!
Burdock is
hey.
here.
So
How we doing,
welcome,
folks?
welcome, Major Burdock, in our show, audio only show, audio only show.
Hello, hello. How we
How
Hello.
doing?
you doing? Tom in the chat says that Diana's volume's too low. I don't know.
Hello, hello. How about these? Like my mic is really close to my mouth right now. In the middle? Okay. I'll put it on my shirt.
Just pin it to the edge of your nose. That should help.
Hey, Major Burdock, please come in.
How we doing? Everybody happy here?
Yeah, we finally keep us from broadcasting.
So yeah, as I was
Colluders.
saying, there's a video on our Spawn channel that it looks like President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are having like what do you call that, press conference, and then Vladimir Putin is saying like they've donated like $400 million to Hillary Clinton campaign, but the video was dubbed, and I don't think it's really accurate though. So I would want that to
Well,
be
I would think
verified
that it's-
first.
Doveria no proveria. Trust but verify. Yeah.
Yes.
I wouldn't
Correct.
be surprised at all if there was $400 million that ended up in the Clintons' hands and it's nefarious and
Yeah, the uranium
batshit.
ordeal
And
is
the Russians-
definitely, yeah, that's pretty
also-
well documented. The Podestas, do you know that Podesta was involved in trying to lobby to lift Russian sanctions? Well, the Russian sanctions, by the way, go back to Sergei Magnitsky, who, there was several $1 million in tax theft by Putin and some people connected to him, allegedly. Right?
Mhm.
And because of that, supposedly this guy was beaten to death in prison, and that's why we have the Russian sanctions at the moment. Now, here's the thing: Fusion GPS was involved in trying to smooth things over regarding the They were anti-Magnitsky and anti-sanctions. And now that there are sanctions, they lost that game, so they flipped sides. And now all of a sudden, it's a very twisted affair. Like, I think more, a lot more of looking into what's going on with Glenn Simpson and his Fusion GPS, the Christopher Steele and all these guys, that the fact that Hillary Clinton paid Russians for opposition research. Wait a minute, wasn't that the reason why Donald Trump Jr. got in trouble? Speaking of which, why did Natalie Veselnitskaya meet with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS before and after the Donald Trump Jr. meeting? Like, isn't this stuff makes me scratch my head? Just makes me wonder, especially considering the fact of how underreported it is.
Well, everybody's got their hands in it one way or another, and the point there is that Clinton should have known better. That, hey, it's basically a barn burner right now, because it's just, they're going all out no matter what, and that's the mentality, and that, damn the consequences, we're just going to go for it, and we're going to get John McCain involved, we're going to get all these other people involved, we're going to base it off this dossier, we're going to have CNN go full tilt, no matter. I mean, people got fired over at CNN because they were just disgusted by what was happening. They were, we're saying, wait a minute, we're making the news and it's not correct, and we're pushing it 24 hours a day. If you look, somebody, by the way, did that, and I'm gonna have to try to figure out where the bookmark is, but somebody did what we were talking about way back when, a year ago almost. That it was with the, remember I was saying, hey, this was back when I was over at the Go Hotel for a while there, and I had the CNN was just on, and it was almost just a very torture. And I was saying, hey, you know what we should do is find somebody that can get a hold of these transcripts and run a word search, just a keyword search on all of them, compile all of them, and compare the networks as to, how many times CNN Russia versus MSNBC or CNBC or their network, or Fox for that matter. And it's absurd. It's absurd. It's in the tens of thousands of percent higher. Every other word over there is Russia. So, and they're continuing, and it's we knew that this was going to happen. I'm just a little surprised by some of the people that are coming out, Republicans that are coming out, simply because Trump was talking about a server today, and they're saying all of a sudden that, oh, this looks bad, needs to. Well, a reporter asked a question regarding the of course everything is about the tampering with the elections, and you'll notice that he's responding, and he's responding off the cuff, and he's going and he's saying, hey, he's trying to make a point about, hey, where's the FBI regarding this server, because that's what if there's anything about Russian collusion, it's on that server, and he's trying to make that point. And they turn around and they're saying, oh, well, this is Trump. He doesn't know whose side he's on, and he's siding with the Russians, and he needs to turn around and scold Putin publicly while they're meeting to show where the U.S. stands. Did somebody fall down?
No. Yes. I just nearly broke everything.
His laptop fell down.
Okay, there we go.
Oh,
wow.
Okay. Wow, it's still alive.
It's one of those days. It's just one of those days.
Sorry for the interruption.
Wow. I'm going to put this here on the table rather than on that thing that...
This is a strong table.
Yeah. That was... In hindsight, that was a pretty dumb idea.
That's gonna be cool if we caught that in camera.
I'm really glad. Yeah, I'm really glad that we're not that we're not filming today, because that would be kind of.
Anyway, okay, we're back. We're back.
Sorry about that.
All right. So it's kind of what we predicted. I'm just a little surprised that the Republicans that are coming around. But here's the thing: where are you going to go? Who are you going to join? I mean, it's looking pretty scary these days.
Here's the thing: I've seen those texts. I don't trust the FBI. Those texts between FBI agents. Literally, I mean, talk about meddling with the election. Who needs Russians when you got the FBI saying we can't let him win?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's absurd what they're doing, and it's the attitude when they go and testify in front of Congress. Okay, is just. Have you guys watched this video with Strzok?
Oh, the one. Oh man. The one where the guy's doing his best Jack Nicholson from The Shining impression. Is that the one you're talking about?
Shining.
And here's Peter.
Yeah. Well,
my God.
There's also
creepy mofo.
I think it was Lexi that had an article. I'm pretty sure it was Lexi that had an article. Might have been Red Pill about the body language. And I saw a couple different versions of this video. Oh, it was Kyle. Okay. Yes. And I just caught some of the video and was watching that as I was kind of going to sleep last night, and that was just freaked out.
Yeah. I don't like to see that. I'll be honest. I didn't like seeing that.
The body
it's
language.
Just of attitude. The attitude is just crazy. It's just this. It's like an injection of pure evil, and that not only that, but it's like, well, we already won, and you're stupid, and you're evil, and it's just this. You can clearly see in this guy's eyes, and he doesn't even appear like he's testifying in front of Congress. That how he's not even taking it seriously. He's dosed. he's totally dosed. I mean, you might as well have Jim Jones sitting behind him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Jim Jones.
Crazy. These people are absolutely out of their minds, and I'm hoping that maybe in the years to come, I'm glad all of this is being caught on video and being recorded, but maybe in years to come, somebody's going to look back at this and say, "Oh my Lord, what happened? What kind of groupthink got these people, this massive group of people, to this mentality?" I mean, it's hate. It is pure hate.
It is. It's
And
really
not only
scary.
that, but what Strzok said, or what he displayed in front of Congress, no less, was this absolute arrogance. It was just pure arrogance.
A fiendish impishness.
Like he controls the world, and these peons, how dare they question me? You know, that's the attitude that I was getting, was this arrogance in his you know, he was uncomfortable, but you could tell that he, every time he turned back to his attorneys, and then you could see him kind of go into himself, and then he'd think, oh well, I've got the most important woman in the world, Hillary Clinton, and George Soros behind me, so everything's going to be okay. And that 300 million that they were talking about, I don't think, certainly it didn't go directly into a campaign, or even for that matter, we would have heard about it, what Putin's mentioning. But I think that that's a shot across the bow to Clinton, because I do think there's 300 million. It didn't go directly into the Clinton Foundation, and it didn't go into her campaign, but it certainly, I wouldn't put it past Putin to throw a number out there saying, hey, because what have the Clintons been doing? What is their goal this entire time? You don't think they're looking for the big score. Obviously, Russia go-to place for massive quantities of money, especially if you're hawking uranium and things like that. What did they get paid, really? I mean, is he talking about 300 million that maybe got funneled through, or is he talking about Libya, or is he talking about, I mean, because he may not be saying that it came from Russia, but what he's saying is that Russians helped Clinton get that money. And I think that it's a reason.
Deal.
Not just for that. I think it's a total deal. I think it's, you
It's
know,
the whole
stealing all the
deal.
gold from Libya.
It's the real deal.
The gold from Libya might be worth about that, you know, and you ship that down into Haiti, and you know, and now all of a sudden you've got mines that are operating. That might constitute 300 million. I mean, there's so many different deals that they had their fingers in it that we know of. What about the ones that we don't know of? I mean, for all we know, that they were having Russians help the U.S. Sell secrets to the Chinese. I mean, how many? The Clintons are thoroughly corrupt. So if Putin's willing to help Trump figure out exactly, you know, and he knows, and because Russians helped do it, how the Clintons got their hands on $300 million, and man, while they were in office, and she was the Secretary of State, you know, wow, that's you know, that's the responsibility of the commander in chief. But you're talking about, at that level, you're talking about the national security of the United States of America. So it's his that's his sole responsibility as commander in chief, is number one responsibility. So if Putin is feeding him information on the Clintons, especially when she was serving as Secretary of State and her husband was as president, then that's just, you know, and they're talking about uranium and trade secrets, and who knows? I mean, Lord only knows. You know, the other big one is, how do we know that they didn't sell out our missile defense system? That's a big one. That's a really, really big one.
And United States hold like the strongest army in the world.
The strongest everything in the world.
Yeah, maybe not anymore if they keep selling, you know.
Well, if our leaders are just not caring about the U.S. and are selling everything.
It's not
It's an
cool.
infinitely weak. I mean, you can
It's like doing under the table transactions all the time.
yeah. I mean, take a look at what happened with, for example, Robert Hansen back in the late 80s. Robert Hansen was um, he was basically a spy hunter. He was a guy who was in charge of figuring out how to turn people, and then how to find the people that got turned.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't just straight up intelligence. He was looking at turning other spies, and that's where your real methods and the real juicy stuff is. And he
The
just
juicy
had,
ones.
he started trading secrets with them. Boy, he started.
Trading secrets.
Well, yeah,
Boy.
he became a spy for the Russians. So he was a double agent, and he became a double agent 4 years after he took a desk where he started espionage operations for the CIA. So, and then he got transferred over into the FBI, and then it was just curtains. I mean, he had access to everything. And what they ended up having to do to get him to catch him, because it's only a matter of time, and it took them a long time to figure out. And this guy's really, really smart. What they ended up having to do was create an entire department that was totally fake inside of the CIA in order to isolate him so that he couldn't get his hands on any more secrets, yet he still had access to some.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did is they created a position, and they created, built out his offices and bugged the entire office, and then took a rookie spy, and they put him in as an assistant to Robert Hansen in order to get this guy and they didn't even tell him what the issue was. They said that he was a pervert, that he was and then the guy actually he was hanging out with hookers and all sorts of things, despite being devoutly religious and preaching to everyone. He had a double life. But the point here is that this stuff happens, and Robert Hansen, the secrets that he gave to the Soviets and then later on the Russians went. We don't know how many lives. Well, we know for a fact that there were 4 Russians that were killed directly as a result of him, and we don't know how many other people. We don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars it costs us, and it was by far the worst case of espionage against the United States that we've ever had, because this guy was entrenched for 15 some years doing it. And so the point of this is that is their job. It's their job. The Russians have people that turn people, like Robert Hansen. Hansen actually turned himself. I think that you've got people in the FBI that are doing that for a cause, and it's totally anti-patriotic and to support this deep state and the idea of a deep state. Mm-hmm. You've got a ton of Robert Hansen wannabes out there who want to destroy the United States of America, and they're working in positions where they can pass secrets to the Chinese and the Russians, and they can so because they don't respect our president and they don't respect the United States. So as the natural thing for the resist movement and the deep state is to just burn it. They want to burn everything, including the flag, including the concept of, they want to get rid of ICE. They don't want a nation anymore. That's the whole point of this. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think that the Russians are really having anything. They've got departments, the GRU, they've got the KGB, they've got other departments that are their jobs are to wake up every morning and to feed intel, bad intel, good intel,
They
to
got the
find
troll
agents.
farms, yeah.
Troll farms.
Everybody's got
That's their
troll
job.
farms, though,
We do it. They do it. Israel does it. The Vietnam problem
Exactly.
does
In
it.
Israel,
New
they call them
Zealand does it.
Hasbarats. In Russia, we call them troll farms. Everybody does that,
Troll
Yeah,
farms.
Yeah,
but
we're like,
different.
imagine a giant building. It's full of a bunch of people sitting in front of keyboards,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all pretending to be just. They're commenting at YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They're commenting at YouTube and Facebook, and that's their job. They're paid either an hourly rate or per comment. This is a big business, and it's intelligence at this point, because people are dumb, and that's just how the brain works. We go, oh well, you know what? All these people are saying. All these people are being paid per comment to say that, though. They want you to second guess yourself. They want to push their own narrative. And it's not one group. It's not Russia's doing it. Israel's, no, China, any major country that, has is involved in this kind of thing. I mean, the U.S. certainly is.
Well, here's the difference. I mean, that's been going on since the dawn of civilization and countries, and since we had borders and people, nations, that's been happening. The big difference today is that it's happening from within. And that's not even a new concept, that it's within, that there's a group of people that might want to overthrow the government or have their own agenda or, secretly control. That's not even new. But what's new now is that you've got this massive sweeping movement, and I guess it's just the right time and place. And you had a whole generation that has been educated along these lines so that it works. That this type of mass gaslighting, to disrespect your country, to disrespect your president, to disrespect the flag, to take a knee, to really a complete contempt for your country, so much that you really don't care about any borders. You want to get rid of those. You don't want any police. You don't want any laws, and you've got a pure hatred for your country. And when that goes the way that it is right now, and the way that it is, certainly I'm in this petri dish here in San Francisco, where this is where it comes from. This is where it grows out of.
Yeah.
And it's frightening. It's frightening because it used to be that you didn't have to be a Republican or a Democrat to think that somebody like Robert Hansen deserved to die, because he was brought up. The only reason that he wasn't executed was because he finally gave out all the details of what he did and how he did it. And so that's, we don't know everything, but there was a deal that was made. But normally treason on that level, which is the worst we've ever seen in the United States, the worst, by far the worst case, was Hansen, and he saved his own life. But normally, treason, if you commit treason, you hang. And everybody, when that guy came out and it became known, there wasn't a soul that didn't want him to hang. I mean, really, nobody on earth would defend him. Today, people are celebrating this. They're celebrating this concept of it seems to be publicly okay to behave in that way, to undermine your president, to undermine the flag, to have complete distaste and disdain for your country. And so it's becoming socially acceptable to behave the way the Clintons do. And that's just downright scary. It's especially when you consider the very real other creepy things. It's not just money and greed, but you've got this tied into, and we talk about this on the Story Behind the Story a lot, because I don't know, you guys have listened to the show. True is, he's a very religious man. And we believe when we're talking about Pizzagate and things like this, the pedophile networks, which are, it's just way too much of a coincidence. There's way too much proof that is surrounding the Clintons and a lot of these people, the Podestas of the world, that you can't help but to come to the conclusion that this is truly a force of evil that is growing in strength and numbers. And however you want to look at it, religiously or not, whatever flavor you're subscribing to there.
And it's really nothing new either. Like, the 80s, the same kind of thing was going on with the Franklin scandal. And then you can go back 100 years, and in Britain you had the Cleveland Street scandal. And then you go back 400 or 500 years, and you've got Jeanne d'Arc, Joan of Arc's best buddy, Gilles de Rais, the notorious child murderer. I mean, like, this kind of not just garden variety corruption. Boy, I wish we lived in a world where people just wanted money, and that's what it was all about, money and power. No, it is so much deeper and sicker than that.
Yeah.
If it was just people wanting money and power, I would be comforted at night. I would be like, phew, they only want money and power. No, it's about degradation and domination and absolute and complete control, and subversion of innocence, and
You're not just going to kill them. You're going to. Yeah. What do you think about that, Diana? I mean, do you feel that this is that there's this
I just
evil
don't like
element to it?
money and power. I think that's gonna make my life, more crazy. I don't want to talk about.
Well, even if you were power hungry, even if you were power hungry and money hungry, Diana, you certainly wouldn't. It seems like that's not enough for these people. These people want
they
want literal
more.
sick sociopaths.
They want it. They kind of get off on the fact that they've killed so many babies just for their sexual pleasure. That they're No, I'm serious. This is
no doubt. There are folks like that. That's why the Jeffrey Epstein op, which was probably likely involved in blackmailing powerful people. That's why that went so well.
They gave the babies
there's so many of these people who can be so easily
drink their blood, the blood of young, and they would think that they're gonna look younger.
Well, they did recent.
That in
there's
the
been
movie,
recent.
though.
No, there's been recent scientific evidence that young blood. They tested on rats and things, and yes, you can infuse an older rat with young rat blood, and it rejuvenates the older rat. I'm pretty sure that the whole story of vampires, that this science, they're just now making it public. I'm pretty sure that Mary of Bathory knew that, and that's why she bathed in the virgin blood of maidens, once again, hundreds of years ago.
No, but Phil, there are clinics now outside of LA.
Oh, I've heard of these. Where you can have a blood boy.
It's what they're doing is they're taking people from the ages of 18 to 25 and with certain characteristics, and I mean, talk about eugenics. And they're
they get
getting their plasma, and these wealthy guys, these billionaires are going in and getting these incredibly expensive plasma transfusions. And apparently, science does support that. It's good. For
vampirism is now solid science. It is. I always kind of guessed that there was something to it. Because here's the thing, when you have myths that are cross-cultural, it doesn't matter if you're in South America, Africa, Asia, North America, every culture worldwide has had stories of vampiric entities. There's something, exactly, witchcraft, and once again, magic. I'm not a mystical, occultist-minded person, but I've studied enough of that crap, and I've studied enough psychology to realize, huh, so that's how that would work. You know, it's mind over matter in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and you take a look at how a lot of these things they spread across cultures is with the seafaring folk, you know, and of
Ports.
course when you get aboard a vessel, and you know there are the captain that I sailed with for a number of years. He was, you know, he was a programmer, and I mean he was an incredibly logical guy and a brilliant mind. And so when he would tell me something about, hey, you can't do this, or we have to do this before we, you know, and we don't want to leave on a Friday. And I'm looking at him like, what? And he said, listen, man, listen, you just don't mess with it. You just don't.
Right.
And there are some of these superstitions on boats that kind of make sense. Some of them don't. You know, there's leaving on a Friday. I'm not sure what that's all about. But you got, for example, you're not supposed to whistle on a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't whistle. You don't leave on a Friday. If you re-step your mast, you put a coin underneath your mast. And if you have the Swedish kroner, an old one, you use a Swedish coin.
Right.
I don't know, you know. So, but there are hundreds and hundreds of these. And when you're taking your first your first couple of nights out, I knew well enough to do this actually, and he was pretty impressed that when you depart and you know the sun's going down and you're at sea and the sails are trimmed, and it's just the two of us, so, and it's cocktail hour, so I bring up 3 cocktails, always, for the first couple of days that we're out. And one is always for Neptune. You throw it over the side of the boat, and he's the first guy that he gets the first drink. And so there's that respect that's paid to the tradition, but there's a lot of that remains superstition. But I get what you're saying with this, Phil, is that there's a good reason for a lot of these things. And you know, you need to take heed at it. So there's a kind of a reasonable expectation of kind of a respect for tradition. What we're seeing now, I know we kind of went off a little bit there, but we can segue back in, is I think that the worst of the worst, like Vlad the Impaler, you know, you take a look at some of the mindset of somebody like that, who, you know, this idea that you can gain power by absolutely destroying human beings. And in a sense, that's very true. Psychologically, it's true. People are going to fear you. Therefore, you're more powerful.
Yeah.
If somebody walks in the room and you know they've killed 1,000 people, you're really not going to want to mess with them. So
I sometimes wonder, you know, in defense of vampirism, I sometimes wonder, would Christendom have the kingdoms of Christendom, would we have been Muslim hundreds of years ago if Vlad the Impaler hadn't drank blood and put people on spikes?
Wow.
No, I mean, really.
That's a fair question.
He you know, and then one day, you know, the Muslims are like, you know, let's not head west, because that guy's crazy. You know?
Yeah.
I consider him a hero of Christendom on some days. I mean, you know, it's iffy. You know, some days I'm like, man, that guy was totally satanic. And then I'm like, I don't know. You know, because I've read the Bible. King David did some pretty evil junk, you know. So I think sometimes you know, they talk about the Lord works in mysterious ways. I'm not saying that the Lord was like, okay, we'll have this guy drink blood and put people on spikes, but I'm not going to say that wasn't used as part of the plan either.
Well, I think the big difference now, especially when you take a look at the Clintons, is they're doing it for themselves.
Yes.
There's not like
Uh-huh.
their country involved here. It's how much power can I get as I'm on Earth, and how long can I live and be powerful and just this force of being. And it's 100% about themselves. There's nothing else that they're really caring about. And so I think when you do it as a statement to really, and you have to do it in some cases to, and that's why torture is effective, or at least the idea of torture. But that's why you have to do it to a few people. You have to do the unthinkable. And
Mm.
a
And you have
while
to do
back,
it in front of
I was,
many people.
well, I was suggesting that what the cartels were doing was very effective,
Oh
in that
yeah.
if you screwed with somebody, you wipe off their entire bloodline is gone,
Mm-hmm.
right down to the babies, right? I mean, right down to the babies. And
You
if the
have them
U.S. did
hanging
that,
headless
That's
with,
what they do in North Korea.
naked from a, yeah,
well, I
That's
don't
yeah.
what
think
they
you
do
have
in
to do
North
all of that.
Korea.
You don't have to do all of that, but what you do is when you get a terrorist, okay, and you catch one, that's no question about it, and he's caught in the act, survives an attack, you go out and do that. You wipe out. I mean, I'm telling you, and tons of innocent people die. You wipe out their entire bloodline, and you broadcast it out, and you say, listen, it's not just you dying in the suicide bomb. Your entire family will do it if you do it against us. And I guarantee you, you only have to do that maybe a half dozen times, and you'll kill hundreds of people. But the very fact that you did it, and it's totally inhumane, and that in and of itself is an evil act.
Mm-hmm.
But considering what you're combating against, I think that it would be an effective means of doing it. It's like, look at the foundation of the Navy SEALs. I mean, we look at the SEALs now as being, highly respectable, the most decorated, the most brave, the SEALs got started in Vietnam, and they were basically some highly trained, um, mostly questionably psychotic. Their psychosis was, I mean, well, because they were given everything they needed to just run across wherever they wanted to go
Mm-hmm.
and kill people in any way they
Yeah, the
wanted to,
Phoenix program
burn
and
down,
all that.
tear through everything. You're talking about hacking off babies' heads. You're talking about
Mm-hmm.
burning
No.
villages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, really showing these
My
people.
Lai, there was the My Lai massacre.
Yeah, but the SEALs were the guys, the very first incarnation of the Navy SEALs. That's what they did. They just let them run loose and do whatever the hell they wanted to. There was no
They
Geneva
should have.
Convention.
Show 'em.
Mm-hmm.
That just did not work. So if you're doing that in war, if you're doing it as you have to have that form of terror, especially if you're fighting terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
But to, today, the way the Clintons, it's just for themselves. And I think you've got all of these little incarnations of these power hungry,
Incarnation.
of like the Soroses. What do they want, really?
Baby.
I mean, what they really want the
Power.
destruction.
More money.
Oh,
I don't
no,
think
but
it's about money anymore once it gets
they've
to a
Power.
got
certain
power.
Yeah,
point.
They've got
power.
money. How are they spending their money? They're spending their money to ensure that European civilization is wiped out, that the
Mm-hmm.
United States civilization is wiped out, that civil unrest is on the brink of. They don't want guns. They don't want us to have guns. They don't want us to have borders. They don't want us to have a culture anymore. They want a new world order.
Mm.
They want a homogenous group of just drones that go and build things for them, and that's it. The elite will never be down in that category. They're looking through they're looking at the world through bulletproof glass and at 40,000 feet in $100 million planes, and that's their life, and they want everybody below them to be, to use up less oxygen. They could care less. They really could care less. I don't even think they really they really don't even care about the environment that much. I think that the environment is just a way to make money for some of these other, like the Al Gores, and it's
Al
also a way to
Gore.
control people, like this straw thing. Okay, now how ridiculous is this? Did you catch this?
The point is not to make the world better. The point is to appear as if you're making the world better. Duh. Who cares
That's
it uses
exactly
more
right.
plastic? The point is they can be like, look, we're doing good. And the fact that they're actually, that it's worse for the environment, that doesn't matter. It wasn't about the environment. It was never about the environment. It's about looking like you care about the environment.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It really doesn't matter. There was a black guy that was, and I'm gonna try to get this interview. He was on the Mark Levine show, and he made some incredible comments about how, because of course now we've got the entire race thing that's brought into it, and he was saying that it's basically white shame, okay?
Yeah.
And what white shame is not really about feeling sorry about what happened to that maybe your ancestors, or what happened to black people in the United States. It's not about that at all. It's fear. It's based on fear, and it's fear of having somebody point at you and pick you out of the group and say that, hey, you're a Nazi. That's what it's about. That's what white shame is. It's not about caring. It's a reaction of fear. And so you've got this behavior that's happening where if you're not a Democrat, especially in this city, you're going to lose your job. That's a very real thing. You're not going to get a promotion. And if somebody knows your political belief, people will spit in your food. They're going to.
That's like.
Oh no, I mean it is not the United States here. It is really, you can feel it. It's palpable. It's just, I mean, Phil, imagine a whole city full of those two people that approached us and confronted us in Singapore when we were peacefully.
That would be more than a little scary. Like after a while, it would start feeling like a zombie movie.
Like you guys are trying to run away from all the zombies.
Yeah, like it was beyond being rude. I was genuinely threatened. The look in that dude's eyes, and he kept looking back at his girlfriend, and I'm just sitting here waiting for her to give the sign for him to rip my head off. Now I was kind of ready for it, because like they said, we're in Singapore where folks get caned. Oh, I would have loved for him to just one good punch. I don't have to see him caned. Just knowing he would get caned. It only takes about, 8 to 13 and you die, right? He only needs 1 or 2 then.
No, I mean, it was just so palpable. I mean, it was just weird because, we had this incredible week, and you had the president over there. He just ended the Korean War. And the culture over there is just incredibly peaceful, and
we met tons of brown people, Indians and Singaporeans, and we met tons of brown people who were talking about how happy they were about tons of brown people talking about how happy they were with Donald Trump. Then we meet these 2 effing white people. It's always the effing white people. You should care about brown people. Well, you should shut up, maybe. Always the effing white people.
No, I mean from Carson City, Nevada. And those people probably came from California because they'd only lived there. I think I asked them how long they lived.
Oh, she definitely had that. I lived in California for like
them?
6 months, and there were some beautiful women in California, but the friggin' accent, couldn't stand it. They were cute till they opened their mouth and
The
You
Valley
know,
girl.
I mean, like, I cannot stand
Yeah.
that accent.
Yeah, it's upspeak is what they call it, I think. Uh,
Yeah.
Terrible. But I don't know. We're at a crossroads here, folks. I mean, you've got all of these things that are obviously, well, first of all, it's just rude to be doing stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
to I when I was brought up, I mean, you waited, you were smart,
You don't spit
and you
on people.
waited.
You don't put
No,
cigarettes out in people's food or drinks. This is just
yeah.
what decent humans do or don't do rather. You
Well, and
shouldn't
this
have to
these
tell
other ones,
someone to be a decent human.
right? And if you're smart and you had a decent upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
you knew what your point was, and you waited. You waited until you were sure that you would win an argument, and you engaged after you knew that you had a good point, and you let it go even further, even further. You never jumped on somebody and said you're wrong. You
Mm-hmm.
said, listen, I read this the other day, and
Right.
by the way, did you see this? And this
That's a
is how,
debate. Yeah.
this is what I noticed. And then pretty much you lead them down a path, and they look around, and they're lost, and they're in your world, and you're surrounding them with facts, as many as you can give them. And that's how I was taught to have a difference of opinion with people. And in debate, it's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
harsher if you're going in a full-on debate, but otherwise you're polite. You're congenial.
Right. There,
And
there used to be a saying, common human decency. The problem is human decency is becoming far too uncommon.
oh yeah, absolutely. There's this
And
and
common
this
sense.
whole, it's
Not common,
excusable
yeah.
now. It's excusable to act like without any thought, to behave in this way. It's excusable to put on black hoods and run around the streets of Portland and
I don't know,
shut.
not if that law passes. You heard about that,
Well,
right? The
which
law that would make it illegal to be masked at a protest.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I am all for it. Like there were the old days when Anonymous would go out in their Guy Fawkes mask, but you know what? There hasn't been that Anonymous died around 2012, like with Operation Lulsec and all that, and they started Barrett Brown went to prison and Sabu went to prison. Those days are over now. Anybody who goes out in a Guy Fawkes mask these days, I don't trust them. I don't know who they
Yeah,
are, but I don't
absolutely.
trust them.
Oh no, I mean, the we've been saying all along that, well, it's only a matter of time before somebody dies over
Mm-hmm.
this, and I've been saying that since Maxine Waters, and then I thought to myself this week, like, now wait a minute, people are dying. People are dying. I mean, take a look in Portland when they went and remember they thrashed everything. They knocked out the electrical system. They just tore downtown Portland all the way up, and then closed off a bridge. And one of the most striking articles that I read was an interview with this EMT technician, this emergency medical guy that was helping a guy who was in cardiac arrest, and bad timing, was in the ambulance, and there were three guys in the ambulance plus the patient's in cardiac arrest, and Antifa shuts down the bridge and stops the ambulance, and starts attacking the ambulance. And this guy, he can't go out. They're radioing. The police can't get to him. They can't close, they've blocked all the roads, and this guy dies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the EMT was voted for Clinton, was a Democrat. The driver and the other guy that was there in the passenger seat, Democrats. The guy who died was a Democrat. His
Mm-hmm.
family, his widow, and his son and his daughter, Democrats.
Right.
And they, I'll tell you what, none of those folks had any positive things to say about Antifa or Resist or Black Lives Matter, or however you want to spin it. you just don't behave that
Right.
way.
I had
You know,
somebody was talking about on Facebook, claiming that, you know, if you're against Black Lives Matter blocking traffic, then you would have been against what do you call it, Martin Luther King Jr. trying to eat it at diner counters. No, nobody died from eating at a
yeah,
diner counter. Nobody died, and people, yeah, I think I've heard of at least a couple cases where Black Lives Matter kept ambulances from coming through. In one case, I think it was a black kid. So Black Lives
oh yeah,
Matter? Then why did you let the kid die?
yeah, yeah. No kidding. Well, over here last year, they I don't know, it was about a year and a half ago. They shut down the Bay Bridge. Now, the Bay Bridge is one of the busiest bridges in the world. I think it's something crazy like 300,000 vehicles per day. That's a massive amount of vehicles over a 24-hour period. It's the widest bridge in the world, and they shut down the whole thing. Um, they parked across and they put these tubes through, and then they handcuffed themselves to their cars, and they threw their keys over the bridge, and they
Jeez.
just and so there was no way for tow trucks to get there, and they stopped and everything, and it was a total nightmare, complete nightmare. And after that, I think it was the next day, or no, it was later that night. I was over at the Adagio with Redfoot. We
Mm-hmm.
were going over having a nice little cocktail. It was a tradition of ours. Once a month we'd meet there and catch up.
Nice.
And I met this guy that he was in a bad way. I mean, he was in a bad mood. And we got to talking, and he said that he was on his way over to the city to interview for a job, and he made sure that he was took off an hour early because it was imperative for him to get to this job interview.
Mm-hmm.
And he lost out, didn't show up, lost the job. He's a black guy. And I said, well, so, I mean, he's like, Black Lives Matter, it sounds good to a black person, but I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm whiter than you are today, okay? Because I mean, this is just ridiculous. So people are losing. There's no call for any of this, and the only reason that they're doing these types of things is because it's some sort of replacement for intelligent thought. They don't have anything that they want to put together or bring forward. It's
Yeah.
resist and destroy. And if so Donald Trump could come up with the most incredible. I mean, he could come out of a burning building and have saved everybody inside, including the kittens, okay, and babies. And they there would still be something wrong with that entire thing. There'd be something wrong. They'd make jokes about his hair being burned off, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane, and we knew this was going to happen. That they were going to get set off, and all it took today was him making a comment about a server, and boy, that's just that's all it did. I mean, there was nothing. I went through everything that he said. I went through Putin's interview,
Mm-hmm.
and Putin was who was it that it was? I just had this up too. Hang on. Oh, I can't remember. He's one of the guys that mediated one of the debates. I'll remember his name. Very well respected, or used to be well respected. Oh man, geez, I forgot his name. I think he's with CBS, but nonetheless, he got the interview with Putin,
Mm-hmm.
and asked some. He asked the same. Obviously the question is not about it's just about collusion. That's it. That's all there is. And you could see Putin's eyes roll, and before he could even answer, he was interrupting, and Putin would just looked at him like, "You're just so stupid." And he kept saying, and he said, "Listen, if you would like a full and complete answer, it would be helpful if you stopped interrupting me." But in a polite way, you know. And then again he'd interrupt, and this went a half dozen times, and it's like, no wonder the guy, he's up to his own thing, okay, don't get me wrong, but he really must think that the American media are just completely he's right to think this, out of their minds, gaslit, totally unhinged, without thought. And there's no politeness anymore, not even with a world leader.
Mm-hmm.
So we have here at the Goldwater, Conor McGregor. He went to Russia, and
my favorite mind-controlled UFC fighter.
Mind control.
Oh yeah.
So he had like a photo with Putin, and then he said he's like the world great leader.
Yeah.
We have this article written by Cal James. So McGregor's social media post was met with controversy from the left, who accused him of not knowing the definition of the world leader.
When was the last time Conor McGregor had a sandwich that wasn't met with controversy from somebody?
Yeah, it's always drawing attention to him, you know.
Like, and there was, I forgot, was it Floyd Mayweather? So
yeah,
well, they think I don't like blacks. Well, what they don't realize is I'm half black myself, from the belly button down.
Like,
you know, okay.
Pure American?
Very funny, Conor.
Pure American?
No, he's Irish.
Oh.
Yeah, I believe
Irish.
he's Irish. Yeah.
Oh.
McGregor, yeah.
Come on, you know, like
Irish.
the stereotypical fighting Irish. Like, not even kidding, you know? Like, you know, I like to get drunk and fucked up and fight, you know? Like the classic fight. They say that every stereotype has some basis in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Conor McGregor is the stereotypical, you know, fighting Irishman.
So I think he just like to draw attention to him all the time.
Yeah. He's got a huge ego,
Yeah.
and likes being the center of attention, and doesn't care if it's positive or negative attention. I think that's a big part of it. Yeah.
In Indonesia, a villager massacred 292 crocodiles to avenge man's death.
That'll show them. I bet you those crocodiles,
Oh my God.
who are sentient creatures and can remember what happened more than 5 minutes ago, are going to be like, stay away from whatever village that is. They're going to tell all their friends. They're going to swim across the river. Stay away from that village. They massacre crocodiles there.
Jesus. A man was killed by a crocodile at a breeding farm in Indonesia, and in its outrage and revenge, Indonesian villagers using knives, hammers, and clubs slaughtered 292 crocodiles. The victim of the crocodile attack was 48-year-old man and the head of Indonesia's Natural Resources Agency in West Papua.
Oh, wow.
Said he was likely picking grass for animal feed when he was attacked.
Oh,
that's sad.
Wow, that's sad.
That shows him
the whole village
trying to be nice to
angry.
Animals,
and
that's what he got, huh? Yeah.
Jesus, it's like a mass.
Yeah,
massacre.
it's like it's
massacre.
A pile of dead crocodiles laying on top of each other.
I don't.
I hope they at least.
I
hope
like
they
I'm
at least eat them though. Have you ever had gator tail?
You gotta harvest.
Oh boy, gator tail's good. I haven't had gator tail in a while.
In Palawan, they do crocodile sisig, but we keep ordering it when we were there, but they said they don't have it. Like in one part of Palawan, they have this crocodile farm. I'm not.
Because I figure, I love gator tail. No. So if gator tail's good, I'm guessing that. How does it taste?
Like chicken?
It's like kind of like frog legs.
No.
So sort of got that chicken amphibian taste, but I don't know. It's got more of a savory steak taste than just plain old frog legs to me.
In India,
Yeah,
lawmaker
it's a little more springy too. And snake,
yeah.
you
It's
really
a little.
should try.
It's a little like clams or something, or
I like
oyster.
clams.
Yeah.
I like
It's got
clams.
that
Or
chewy.
like,
I can eat oysters, but if it's cooked, yeah. If it's
you
cooked
cook
and it has
rattlesnake,
cheese
though,
on it.
Phil,
Oysters with
if
cheese. And then dark chocolate.
if you cook snake though, if it's cooked right, it should have the consistency of like a scallop.
Really?
I like scallops
I like
too.
scallop.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if you cook it right, but yeah, the first one oh man, we shot one and cooked it, and yeah, that was you have to, I don't know, you have to, there's an art to it. I never knew.
So you did.
I mean, it was still
taste the
moving. It was
snake.
moving like a half hour after we cut its head off.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I could eat
Yeah.
frog. I could eat frogs,
I
but I
like-
couldn't
Frogs are
stand
good.
seeing
Frog legs.
a
Frogs
frog.
are good. Rabbits also good because it's
Rabbit.
true what they say.
No,
The
no,
cuter the
no,
animal,
no,
the better it generally
no,
tastes.
No, don't eat
Yeah,
rabbits.
Yep.
They're
there you
like
go.
so cute.
Give me some barbecue panda.
I bet exactly. I'm
no,
sure.
don't eat pandas.
I'm sure that
no,
panda tastes
let's
good
not
because
eat
they're
cute
very
animals.
cute.
But
Hickory smoked
I like
smoked
lechon.
panda.
roasted pig. I want lechon right now.
Panda inasal. Yum.
Panda inasal. No, you guys.
Well, bringing
This
it
is-
all around back to Russia, people wanting attention. You got Pussy Riot that did, they
Oh,
got.
gosh.
Well, I was surprised they only got 15 days in jail. So they're
Oh
spending the
yeah,
next
this.
week.
You know the old
guys.
like free Pussy Riot? I wouldn't take Pussy Riot even if it was free. I mean, you
Why do
know,
they call
I
it Pussy
certainly
Riot?
I certainly wouldn't spend a penny on
Are
it.
they some kind of like a?
It's a like a rock
a
group or something.
A group, yeah.
But
Okay.
lately, for the past 5-6 years, they've been more of political rabble rousers than
Incarcerated.
anything.
Well, they've always been
Mhm.
political, but yeah, they've been. They were incarcerated for quite some time.
Oh yeah. I remember that the whole free Pussy Riot. You know,
So
no.
they wore like
Yeah.
a fake police uniform.
Yeah, the mask.
And then they
And then,
run into
there
the soccer
was
field.
one chick who was fairly good looking, and I've never heard their music. I just see their, and then the only other thing that I saw was a porn that she did. Her and her group did.
Jesus Christ.
When she did it in a museum. I guess they broke into a museum and they all.
Was it a museum or a church? Because they did something semi-pornographic in a
did
Russian
something in a-
Orthodox church. Like, you know, I can understand you
know
want
they
to do
did
a
something
political
in a
thing or
church,
whatever, but
The
yeah.
porn is straight up. It's a real porn, and the gal that I'm talking about, Val starts with a V something. She's pregnant, and they're all having sex in this kind of like, she's having prego sex.
Interesting.
Oh no.
And then they put this big banner up and they film this porn and they're all screwing and so it's basically this last thing they stormed on the field because the FIFA, the official governing body of the soccer World Cup, apparently they had a problem with it, saying that something having to do with not treating poor countries very well. But again, it's like one of these things, like
It was really more about raising their own
Attention.
public profile. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're pretty much nobodies now.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Madonna isn't saying anything about them now. Madonna's got So-
Madonna. I remember that song.
So the World Cup is over. We've finished
Who
that.
won?
One. Dang.
France did, folks.
France.
You guys really don't.
Wow.
You really
friends.
don't.
We don't.
Well, and then what they did is they promptly rioted and started destroying the city. I don't understand that. It's like you won.
If you lose, you riot.
So they're
if
like
you
the
win,
World
you
Cup,
riot. Yeah.
World Cup
Yeah.
champion, the France.
Yeah, very
Wow.
French.
Oh well.
Told you.
Congratulations.
Told you. There for a while. They were hanging in there. But yeah, so they lots of damage there. They had to get some water cannons out. 2 people died. But
Right?
yeah,
Wow.
well, there's always just stupid things, people jumping over things they shouldn't, or
They shouldn't.
slamming into things.
You know, on a very serious note, though, I saw some statistics that domestic violence rates in England during the World Cup rose 27% and over 30% when they would lose. And you know why the British men beat their women? Because they can't beat men.
I saw that, yeah.
I'm sorry, that's terrible.
That's
That's
it is.
terrible.
You know what? It is kind of funny.
It's kind of funny too, though.
Funny.
Because they can't beat
Those-
men at soccer.
Those jokes are allowed.
Oh, geez.
Domestic abuse are allowed.
Right.
Yes,
What is it? There's nothing funny about rape except for a well-told rape joke.
You guys. Well, it's about time. It's about time.
Got us all.
And I guess that's our sign then, yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, on the other note, I was going to. I'll go ahead and DM this to you guys, but just an update on one of our contributing writers and resident conspiracy theorist who is currently incarcerated here in California. If you didn't catch the story behind the story, which airs here on Fridays at 7 p.m., Dr. H. Watt and I went through what we know about what happened to Alex Studer. He was caught in a SWAT standoff, and he, we still don't have all of the details.
So when he was talking about the lights and all that, I guess that was wow. I remember all that stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually did use high frequency and medium weird frequency. They had a truck pull in, and
wow.
It was a 6-hour standoff, and so nonetheless, how it happened, why it happened, what precipitated the entire thing, we're still getting all of the information. But for those of you that need an update, you can go ahead and email me at Burdock@thegoldwater.com, Burdock@thegoldwater.com, and I can give you updates, and we'll let you know if you need to get a hold of Redfoot, or Alex Studer is his real name. Just email me, Burdock@thegoldwater.com, and I'll get you in touch with him. He's currently being held on a $2 million cash bond.
Wow.
Okay, now this is the cash bond. So that's something that is normally, you murder somebody.
Yeah, right.
Usually get $1 million regular bond, like a regular bond. So yeah, we're looking at it, and just for folks that need to get a hold of him, I'm the conduit at this point. And nonetheless, you can also get a hold of True, or call into the show, get a hold of Dr. A. True Ott. And you can listen to him again Fridays at 7 p.m. on Revolution Radio, and the show is The Story Behind the Story. So, and also, always, as always, we like to plug Alex's website, which may have been some of the reasoning behind all of this, by the way. You can go to labvirus.com and check out the wealth of information there. And we'll update you again next Friday, coming up here in a few days on the story behind the story.
Nice.
Thanks everybody for bearing with us, by the way.
Yes, technicals. So we're gonna sort it out after this show. Thanks for everyone who tuned in our audio-only live streaming.
And until next time.
Yeah, this is Diana Prince.
And this is Phil, as always, as usual, signing off.
Signing off.
Godspeed, folks.